Hi everybody, I'm Samantha Shad, and this is, yes, the 6th video in our series on how to write to happiness. And this is where the juice is. This is the best stuff possible, although it might not feel that way. So, hopefully you wrote your story, right? We've got the story from beginning to end with words. Maybe not good words, maybe not the right words, but words. Guess what? You have to rewrite it. Because you can make it better. And because to the known world, there has never been a good writer who could get it all perfectly in the first draft. So, don't even think about that. You're rewriting. Which is great. Let's look at what you've written. Have you sent it to people to look at? If so, you probably sent it to people who will be required to say, "That was really great, I'm really interested." Which is fine. I am a great believer in getting friends to give you applause. Fantastic. But it can be better. And it can be better for a specific purpose. The more you work on it, the more you will learn the messages that your unconscious is sending you for the rest of your life. Now, most stories, when they have to be written, have the same flaw. Almost every story has the same flaw. You got to the bottom of the second act, all was lost, and wasn't really all so lost. You still had a scholarship. You still were working for the New York Times on the Pulitzer. Whatever your character was going through, it just wasn't bad enough. Probably it wasn't bad enough because you wanted to be able to reach the end of the story. If you have a character who truly at the end of the second act, all is lost, and you don't know how to solve it, you'll write less terrible things for the character so you can go on to the third act. Makes perfect sense. Every writer has done that, probably on every property, every piece. But here's the great thing about this. You started this writing project with a problem that your character was having to work out in the process of your story. And at the bottom of the second act, you ran out of solutions you already know. You were just stuck again, wherever you were in your real life or your character's real life, right? That's why the bottom of the second act is really hard, because it goes and just to the point where your own knowledge of solutions ends. And it is the golden moment, because this is where you create the change in your story and your life. If you face that moment where all is truly lost, there is no getting around it, you will stomp around. I have worn out carpet figuring out the bottom of the second act. It's a bad spot. But at some point, if you stay with all is lost, your brain will be forced to take what you have already learned in the story and reconfigure it for a new situation. And all will no longer be lost. Your main character, which is a piece of you, will have faced an obstacle that is bothering you. And when you crack through the bottom of the second act, you will have a solution that you never had before, because you never pushed as hard as you have to at the bottom of the second act. You will learn something entirely new, because you will create something entirely new. It has to be that way. Most often, the goal that we started with, remember it was a really specific, hard goal, transforms into a more significant goal. Instead of wanting to be a doctor, you want to help people everywhere. Instead of wanting a Pulitzer, you want to find truth and send it out into the real world. There's a depth that happens at the bottom of the second act. And when that depth arrives and you allow yourself new solutions that you never thought of before, you yourself become a better person. You yourself experience that leap. You yourself create the change you want for your character, right? But also for yourself. So when we rewrite, we take the impossibly wonderful leap by seeing the worst that can happen and figuring out a better way to approach it. That's why rewriting is golden. That's why rewriting is where we learn the truth. And most importantly, that's why we change our lives. Because when we rewrite, we are focusing intently on a challenge that is deeply felt within us. And if we want neuroplasticity, if we want to change our brains, all of the recent science says in order to change our brains for the better, we have to genuinely focus on a real challenge that is very hard for us, but to which we find a solution. The miracle of writing to happiness is neuroplasticity. It's sticking with the fiction to find real solutions, going over it and over it and over it. Every time you rewrite, you broaden the highway in your brain with that answer. You process the real obstacles you're facing. You find solutions that were never there for you. You now have a different roadway in your brain. You have different networks that now are embodied in neurons that hold the solution to a problem that when you started writing, you did not know the answer to. And it was stopping you. That's why your unconscious was popping up with like, write about this, write about this, write about this. You have undergone neuroplastic change. And here's the best part of this. It was fiction. Remember we talked about, don't worry about facts, do fiction? Your brain takes what you've just put it through and makes those physical changes in your brain. Those neurons are changed. Those pathways have been used and are strong now. So what do you do about the fact that it was all made up? Well, this is a really cool part of your brain called the interpreter. And what the interpreter does is look at what the brain has presented. For example, you didn't really want a Pulitzer. What you wanted to do was to find the truth and send it into the world. And says, I interpret that as really good. I don't care whether it's true or not. I'm calling it true. That's the interpreter. So a piece of your brain says fiction is as good as fact for learning these lessons. So when you write fiction, you go and face obstacles that are bothering you on a journey that comes from your unconscious. You find solutions you never ever imagined before. And your brain says, fiction is as good as fact, we've learned it now, and you actually have changed. And that is how you write to happiness. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, send them to me at hello@samanthashad.com. Have a great day.